We had been together for 5 years, ever since high school, and I thought she was the one. I couldn't imagine my life without her. She wasn't just my girlfriend. She was my best friend, my future, the person I trusted with everything. I had even started saving for a ring, planning to propose in the coming months. We'd talked about our future so many times: marriage, a home, even kids someday. She promised to help me with my college tuition so I could finally get my degree. I thought we were building something real, something uncheckable. That evening, while she was out celebrating her best friend's birthday at a club, I stayed home expecting to enjoy a quiet night. However, things took a sudden and painful turn. I felt a sharp, growing pain in my abdomen, unlike anything I'd experienced before. At first, I thought it might just be a stomach cramp, but soon the pain intensified and radiated to my groin area. To my shock, I realized one of my testicles was swelling rapidly. The pain became so severe that I could barely move, let alone think straight. In my panic, I tried calling her, desperate for help, but she ignored my calls. I sent texts explaining that something was wrong and asking her to come home, but she didn't respond right away. I was left alone, curled up in agony on the floor, feeling helpless. Finally, she replied with a message that felt more dismissive than concerned laughing emojis, followed by telling me to stop playing games and not to bother her again. I was stunned, feeling a deep sense of betrayal. The person I thought would be there for me, the one I had imagined spending the rest of my life with, wasn't even willing to come home to check on me in my time of need. Instead of rushing to my side, she stayed at the club, leaving me alone with the worst pain of my life. The reality of the situation was sinking in. Something was fundamentally wrong between us, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. The pain grew unbearable, intensifying to the point where I couldn't even get up. My body was paralyzed by the sharp, excruciating sensation in my abdomen and groin. I tried to summon enough strength to move, but it felt like my legs wouldn't obey me, as if my whole body was failing me. In my desperation, I reached for my phone and dialed her number, hoping she'd hear the panic in my voice and rush to my side. But when the call went unanswered, I tried again. No response. I sent her a series of messages explaining the severity of my pain, begging her to come home, but her replies were nothing short of shocking. Her messages were laced with laughing emojis, dismissing my distress as if I were overreacting. "Stop being dramatic," one read. "You'll be fine. Stop calling me while I'm out with friends." It stung deep in my chest. How could she be so indifferent? This wasn't a joke, it was the worst pain I had ever experienced. I couldn't understand it. We had been together for 5 years since high school, and I had always believed that we were partners, that we were supposed to be there for each other through thick and thin. I had envisioned proposing to her soon, building a future together, but this moment shattered that illusion. She had made it clear that my pain wasn't worth her attention. The reality of her disinterest in my suffering hit me hard, and I couldn't ignore the painful truth anymore. This was not the kind of love I thought we shared. I tried calling her again, desperate for her help, but this time my phone buzzed with a harsh notification: "Call blocked." She had blocked me. My heart sank as the reality of the situation hit me with full force. The woman I had loved for 5 years, the one I'd been planning to marry, had turned her back on me when I needed her most. I was on the floor, curled in agony with no one to turn to. There was no time to waste. With my body growing weaker and the pain intensifying, I knew I had to act fast. I dialed emergency services, my hands trembling as I begged for an ambulance. "Please, I need help. I am in pain. Something's wrong with me," I barely managed to say. The operator reassured me that help was on the way, and soon a team arrived, lifting me carefully onto a stretcher. I couldn't stop sweating, my breath shallow, and I felt as though I was fading away. The journey to the hospital felt like an eternity. I was fading in and out of consciousness, too weak to even keep my eyes open. When we finally reached the emergency room, the doctors immediately began running tests, trying to diagnose the cause of my pain. After a tense wait, they delivered the verdict. I had testicular torsion, a condition where the spermatic cord twists, cutting off the blood flow to the testicle. If not treated urgently, it could lead to permanent damage or even the loss of the testicle. The words echoed in my mind. Losing my testicle seemed like an abstract, distant thought, but in that moment, the fear became all too real. I realized that I had narrowly avoided a life-altering tragedy, yet all I could think about was how alone I felt in the face of it. The woman I had imagined spending my life with was nowhere to be found. How could she be so indifferent? Was this what our future would look like? I had planned to propose to her soon, but now I questioned everything about our relationship. What had we really shared all these years? When I finally got home after the harrowing ordeal at the hospital, I felt physically drained and emotionally wrecked. I walked through the door and there she was, sitting on the couch. Her eyes widened when she saw me, and she quickly rushed over, her face a mix of concern and guilt. "I just found out you were in the hospital. Why didn't you tell me? What happened?" Her voice was soft, but I could hear the unease in her tone. I stood there, too exhausted to speak at first. After everything that had happened, I didn't know how to explain the depth of my disappointment. She should have been there for me, supporting me through the pain, not ignoring my calls and treating my emergency like it was some kind of joke. But now she was here, looking concerned as if nothing had happened, as if everything could be fixed with a few worried words. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself, but it didn't help. "I needed you," I said, my voice cracking. "I called you and you blocked me. I was lying in pain, and you didn't even answer. I had to call an ambulance because you wouldn't help." My words hung in the air like a cold accusation. Her face changed slightly, guilt flickering in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she muttered, her voice flat, almost robotic. "I didn't know what was happening. I just thought you were fine. I didn't mean to ignore you." But her apology felt empty, hollow. It was clear she wasn't fully grasping the weight of what had occurred. She had been too caught up in her own world to care about me in my moment of need. I had been planning to propose to her soon, to build a life together, but now it seemed like the love I had felt for her was vanishing. How could I marry someone who treated me with such indifference when my life was on the line? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was broken between us, and the trust that had taken 5 years to build was now shattered. After a long, tense silence between us, my girlfriend finally broke down. Her eyes, once filled with an indifferent confidence, now carried a look of regret. "I was wrong," she admitted, her voice trembling with sincerity. "I should have been there for you. I can't believe I let my selfishness take over and ignored your calls when you needed me the most. I'm so sorry. Please, I'll do whatever it takes to make things right." Her words hung in the air, and though I could see she truly felt remorse, the damage had already been done. The trust we had built over the past 5 years was now fractured. The image of her ignoring my calls, laughing off my pain, kept replaying in my mind. She had been my rock, my high school sweetheart, the one I had envisioned spending my life with. But now everything felt uncertain. How could I continue in a relationship where my pain was dismissed so easily? I looked at her, the words I had been holding in finally coming to the surface. "I need time to think," I said quietly, my voice firm despite the sadness that weighed heavy on my chest. "I can't just forgive and forget. I need space to figure out if I can still trust you, if I can continue in this relationship." She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I'll do anything. Just tell me what you need." I took a deep breath, making the difficult decision. "I think you should move back to your parents' house for now. I need to be alone to process everything. I don't know if we can go on like this, but I need time to think about it." The silence that followed was deafening. I could see her hesitation, but she agreed without argument, knowing that her actions had brought us to this point. As she packed her things, I couldn't help but feel a sense of loss, but I knew this was the only way to gain clarity. Would we get through this? Or would this be the end of our 5-year love story? Only time would tell. As we sat in the quiet of the room, I tried to gather my thoughts, the weight of the situation pressing heavily on my chest. After 5 years together, I couldn't just throw it all away. But something had to change. My heart ached from the betrayal, yet I still wanted to believe in us. If we were to continue, there had to be new rules, boundaries that would restore the trust that had been shattered. I need to lay down some ground rules, I said, my voice steady but firm. First, no more blocking each other's numbers. I don't care how angry we get. I need to know I can reach you in an emergency. Second, in any urgent situation, I expect a response. Not just a quick text, but something real. We need to be there for each other when it counts. She nodded, listening intently. I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but I wasn't convinced yet. Most importantly, I continued, trust has to come first. Without that, there's no relationship. If we're going to move forward, trust has to be our foundation. It wasn't easy to say, but these were the rules that would determine if we could rebuild what had been broken. Whether we could survive this, only time would tell.